So, hi everyone, I'm Dawn. This is my good friend, Summer Sawyer, and we have known each other for so long. I'm not even going to try and count the decades. We have spent so much time and energy on solving the world's problems, and I feel like a lot of times we have done that with a 12-pack and many times on the porch. So I love talking to her because we can get really deep about what I love to talk about, which is what keeps us going. What do we do when we're stuck? Is this really the right thing? How do we know? Like, I just like diving into those topics and figuring stuff out. So Summer has a great story about what she's learned from a couple of things that have happened in her past. So we're just going to jump into it and have a conversation. So you had Zaven. So you had your first kid. So so you had something wrong. Was that a pregnancy, or did they just determine that something needed to?
So yeah, so I got pregnant again, and basically what happened, like I was at work, we had our first ultrasound scheduled. I was like 10 weeks along, and we went to the ultrasound, and basically I was told I have an ectopic. There was a heartbeat, but it was like it was in the tube, so I had to go have emergency surgery immediately, and I didn't go back to work, and I had to call work and say there's been a problem. And
so what did they do? They took out half of your.
They took a fallopian tube. They couldn't save the fallopian tube. So I lost that pregnancy. It was very, very sad. And, there was that part of like, all right, well, I've only got one fallopian tube left. I'm probably not going to have any other kids.
So tell me the adjustment that you had to make at that point, because you were so assuming that you were going to have another kid. Yeah. And then you had to go through this whole process of, I love Zaven, and he's the one, if he's going to be the only one.
Yeah, I was really grateful. I mean, it's funny because when it comes to life and making babies, and there are ways that you can do those things, but I wasn't going to go down a path of trying to make more, if it wasn't meant to be a natural state, then I wasn't going to pursue that. I was just going to be really, really happy, and I was very, very happy with my
so this was all about acceptance.
It was all about accepting, just like, okay, well, that happened. It was, again, very, very sad. I had to be off work for several weeks because of the surgery aspect of it. And what was nice was I could pull Zaven out of daycare and just spend time with him, take him to, I think he may have even been starting preschool at that time, and he was little. And, just really be in the moment with him and accept that time and be okay with it.
Yeah.
And then,
but it was sad.
It was very sad. It was.
But really, you just came to the conclusion that, here's my family.
Yeah, it was. And, I'd had a miscarriage my very first pregnancy too. So it was like, I kind of knew I was having some things go on, but so that even made me more grateful that I had my one.
Oh.
And it was just, so basically, after that, like, we pretty much threw all caution to the wind. We're like, well, we've only got one fallopian tube, so there's no way we're having more kids. It's not going to happen easily.
Right.
And then I'm not kidding. Like, a few months later, I was like getting up in the middle of the night, like, I got to eat. I'm sick. And it was like 1 a.m. and consistently. And they had told me, like, if you think you're pregnant again, you come in really early, we'll ultrasound and make sure that one's in the right place.
Oh.
And so we did that. We were like, all right, I know I'm pregnant. I went and got blood work. They're like, ooh, it's really high. You're good. You're probably really good. And then I was like, well, I need an ultrasound. I need to make sure that this one's in the right place. So a few days later, we have an ultrasound, and they're like, you got twins. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me?
Isn't that crazy? Because you went through all of this.
Yeah.
You just let go and accepted, and then you get twins.
Twins.
Not one.
Yeah.
Two.
Yeah. Honestly, like if the loss hadn't happened, if I hadn't lost the fallopian tube and that pregnancy had gone through, I was only going to have 2 kids. I was only planning in my mind 2 kids. So it had to happen that way.
Wow.
So you get the benefit of hindsight going, this is how it had to happen. This is the way life had to happen in order to get me these beautiful boys. I have 3 beautiful boys, And
so that says something about acceptance then, doesn't it? Like, if you would have fought that, if you would have, you know, tried to make something happen, tried to have a surrogate, or tried to go that route because you were so determined to have another kid, it wouldn't have turned out this way, probably.
I don't think so.
So the fact that you just let go and accepted, and this is my family, that's when something else can come in.
Yeah. I mean, again, with life in that regard, I mean, I know I know many people have gone down the road and have been blessed with, you know, multiples, one, single, you know, whatever, like, and that has been the right path for them. And they know, I'm sure, sitting in there, you know, with their families going, I'm so grateful that I did this. And their life takes that path that they needed to take.
Right.
And I mean, for me, it really was like, you know, I'm not going to, there's nothing I could do. So it really was like, you know, just enjoy and release and do all of those things. And that's how it looked for me. And that's how it turned out for me. And it's amazing. Like, that is one of the things that, I mean, all of my babies, of course, are amazing. And I marvel at how they're here. And to me, that even kind of solidifies for me, like, their purpose on earth and my job as a mother to just let them be the life that they are, because they came, all three of them, all of us, actually, the fact that we're here, you know, means that we have a purpose. And it doesn't mean always, you know, oh, rich, famous, and yachts and all that stuff. I mean, like, that's the last thing. I'll take a yacht. I'll have one. It'd be
I'll say no.
You want to put me on a yacht? Call it mine. I'll take it.
But what's so interesting is that all three of your kids came here really determinedly. Is that a word? You know what I mean? Like you had some kind of faulty something going on, and out pops Zaven, and then you had some complications, and you were, you know, it's likely like my chances are cut in half, and then here comes two. You know, like, they really wanted to be here.
Well, they do. They're really, they're very energetic.
Totally. But I love that idea of you didn't do anything to stop that from happening. No. Whatever was going to happen was going to happen. It just
had to. I mean, again, that's where the aspect of, like, control. You know, we don't have any control in any way, and that's a huge lesson for me. I still need to learn that. You know, like, even the littlest thing, like when you're in traffic or something, it's like, you know, you don't have any control over this stuff. And it's silly. I mean, but if you take it down to your daily life and that level, it's like, I can only control this much. You know, like, our family's been through layoffs, you know, and certain, or even just choosing to quit a job. You know, it's like, you have to weigh your options and know that, like, all right, if I make this decision, I don't have, you know, you just have to suffer the consequences, or let it go and be content.
I like how you always use that pregnancy story when I'm going through something. You're like, remember?
I mean, and that's why I go back to that loss, like, things that seem to be a loss. A loss of a job, like, or even, again, leaving a horrible job can open up so much new energy, you know, and losing a job, which is terrifying for so many of us, you know, it opens up new life, new energy. So that loss
was
necessary in order to bring new life, new energy. And again, I had nothing to do with that.
But you didn't stop it. I mean, normally we would have been like, no, I'm going to make it happen because I have this expectation in my mind.
My life is going to look like this. I was going to have 2 children and they were going to be this and this. And, you know, it just doesn't happen that way.
So how does that inform when you go through things now? Like, are you less anxious about stuff? Do you think about that a lot? And are you more able to let go?
In certain situations. I mean, again, when it comes to things like life and things that you really have no control over, I mean, it's terrifying, you know, in a lot of ways to think about losing anybody that's close to you. But when my brain goes to, like, fear thoughts about that kind of stuff, I'm like, well, I don't have any control, like, including, you know, you love every day and you love your people every day, and you tell them that you love them every day, and that's where you do your best. But at the same time, I'm not as afraid of loss life, you know, like to me, I'm like, I'll be like, well, everything can be fixed if it breaks, or, you know, like or if you lose a job, we celebrate because you have to. You have to celebrate that new things are coming. And if it's your choice to leave a job, then, you know, you can celebrate that as well. And then you're like, oh my God, you know?
Shit your pants later.
Yeah.
And you guys, so I've watched you, and I love being old enough to look back on your life and be able to see the path and how things always seem to work out. But at the time, it's so difficult because you have to make these decisions, and you're dealing with such uncertainty, and you're not quite sure if you're going to be okay. And I've watched you guys navigate. For one thing, I so admire you for being a mom, 3 kids. I remember when she was pregnant with her twins, and she was about to have the babies, and we went to brunch, and you were so huge, and she's only 5'1", like she's just tiny, and some man, like you were getting up to go to the bathroom, everyone around us was like,
yeah, it's huge.
Make way. So I totally admire you for all that you've been through, all the hardships and the trying to make decisions about, you have 3 little kids to deal with, and you and your husband, and the logistics, the money. But as you look back, you can kind of see how you would make an intention, you would make it known that you want something, like you want to be an at-home mom next, because you worked. Chad was an at-home dad for a while. You wanted to shift that. And there was a point where that wasn't happening as fast as you wanted it to be. And you needed something to change because it was affecting stuff. And you were driving. So tell me that story.
Well, that was actually a lot of me not just trusting and giving up control of and accepting, because it's really funny now. Like I really like working now because I don't have to be home all day, and I mean, the kids are in full-time school and stuff, but I think it's good for me to be working. So I had this perception that and Chad was working, he worked from home, but he managed to have these gigs where he was working from home, so we didn't have to do daycare. Zaven was, a little baby, and it just worked out. But I, at that time, was going to work every day and just being like, oh, he's doing all this stuff. And, that's being partly a new mom and feeling like the guilt of the mom, I'm not there. And I mean, people do it every day. And again, it is like what you were saying in retrospect, being able to look back, and maybe it's as you get older, you see how things flow. And everything always kind of works out, even if you're fighting against something and thinking, again, it's the thinking that it should look different than what it does. And that's been a really, really huge lesson for me, is to just be like, you know what, this looks the way it does, and I just have to love it and be accepting of it and appreciate it. Because it's like they say, when it's gone, you really do. And what was great, well, not great, but what happened this last time? So Chad was laid off from a part-time work-from-home gig that worked for 4 years for us. So no one really had to be in any daycare situations. And
the fact that Zaven is 11 now, and you guys haven't had to have any daycare. With 3 kids.
Exactly. I mean, we've, financially, maybe other people are making more money than we are, and that's fine. That's a choice that we've made, but our careers have, kept us going. And so basically, one of a key moment for us was he left a job that he really, really didn't like. I wasn't working, and I saw him coming home every day just horrible in his, his life. I mean, it's like no one should be that miserable. And again, we didn't have a job. If he were to quit, I told him quit your job.
That was so big of you.
He did. He quit, and we were like, okay, sky's the limit. Now, we did have some business ideas that we were going to leap off to at that time, and we were really genuinely exploring doing some things. And I think that having that to kind of leap off to was very important for him to be able to be like, all right, I'm leaving this, but I've got something that we're going to pursue. And therefore, it kind of gave us a mental space. You're like, all right, let's do this, And that didn't end up panning out, but what was great was again, it was hard. It wasn't like, oh, everything's great. And, you know, because as the second month goes in
and money, it's always
no
money.
Job.
Yeah.
And we had, you know, we had some savings to live off, but I like having my savings. I don't want to spend it on that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So I went out and spent some time with my dad out in Palisade, and
you were having a really rough time.
I was having a really hard time. I was in a really bad place because it just was really, really hard.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I'm having to remember back. I've forgotten a lot of this stuff because I'm in
another lesson.
Place.
You won't remember. Like as much anxiety as you have about a decision, you won't remember.
I mean, I know there are these key moments, but I don't necessarily remember exactly the timeline. You know, it's funny that maybe it's just because I'm really overwhelmed with kids right now. Everything they're doing. But anyway, I do remember, like, I took this class. It was actually
your dad got you there.
He did. They were taking these weekend classes that were really kind of like getting past your fear and examining what you really want and trusting. And this guy told this story about, like, he was going to just play with the universe. He was the instructor, and he gave us his story about how, like, he collected these special kind of pen. I don't remember what kind of pen it was, but he told himself or the universe that he wanted to collect 12 of these pens. They're very expensive, and he didn't want to buy a single one of them. So he basically gave example after example after example of how these pens came into his life, and just randomly. Like the last one he got was at this restaurant. Like the waitress actually handed the pen for him to sign the bill, and he was like, "Oh, I really like this pen. This would be the last pen that I need." And he took it back to her, and he's like, "This is a very valuable pen because they're collectibles, and you know, it's not mine, but here you go. Here's it back," and just kind of planted that seed for her. Here's my card. Like if nobody claims it or something, like it was lost or something. And anyway, she was basically like, all right, if nobody comes back to claim it in a month, I'll send it to you. And she did. And
wow.
So anyway, he had these kind of random stories like that of how he ended up ultimately getting these 12 pens.
Wow.
Or I don't collect
I'm scared to do that kind of experiment.
Yeah, but what happened was, like, we didn't have a job. You know, we were between in our little family, and so when I was driving home, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play with this idea, and I was really sad and distraught and just needed some space. And I on the way home, I remember saying, all right, I need a phone call within the next week that's going to change my life. And now, to be fair, I had set up some things prior, like right when Chad left his job, I had reached out to my old company, and I just let them know that I'm available to come back and work if they need anything. And basically that's exactly what happened, was like that week. And I mean, it was a few months after the fact of planting that seed of just, plain, I got the phone call saying, Summer, do you want to come back?
But it was within a week.
It was within a week. I said within a week or 2 weeks, I need a call that's going to break up this despair and this situation. I didn't know what it would be.
Yeah.
But I did get the call, and within 2 weeks I was back to work.
That's
and
great.
Full time. Chad was able to just kind of explore. And then within a couple of months after that, like his old company from years ago, we actually had a party, and he was talking to some people who still worked there, and they had actually reached out to him about doing freelance work, and he wasn't going to go back to that world, doing graphic design and stuff, and which I understood. I was like, yeah, that's not, if it doesn't work for you, don't do it.
Yeah.
That's the lesson we learned. Where it's like, you just came off of a horrible situation that was draining your life energy, and it's like, don't do it. Mm-hmm. So he was pretty adamant about, no, I'm not going to do that. But then they called him a couple of weeks later and said, hey, how about a on the clock, part-time position, completely 100% work from home. And it just, but if he hadn't left that horrible job, who knows what would have happened.
And I suspect that many families with 3 young kids would have been like, there's no way you can quit. Just suck it up and bring home a paycheck.
And again, to be fair, like we had some savings. We, it wasn't like, maybe we would have waited a few months and like really nipped it and saved as much as we possibly could to make that leap. But I really think that leap had to happen in order for this
But we forget that. We forget that we have to create space. We have to clean things out and let something else come.
Yeah.
And we either clean it up and then try and fill that space, and go in a different direction, so we miss that opportunity, or we don't create the space at all, because heaven forbid should we go without a paycheck for a month or whatever.
Or and it's it's not an easy thing to do, but and sometimes you do, I guess, have to get to that point of just despair, or even watching somebody you love suffer to go, it's not worth this. It is not worth.
I think that was so big of you at the time, because I know you were stressed out at that time, and the kids were small, and there's everything to do with parenting, and then the finances, and then Chad's coming home, not happy. That was very big of you to give him permission to
it was actually really great and now we always have that freedom to go, and what's great is like, you don't feel like you have to, you don't get so stressed, because there's an out.
Yeah.
There you can always stop.
So tell me, recently that happened to you. You were working full time. You have been since that moment. And you started deciding, and then Chad got another job.
Yes, he's now full time. Well, he was laid off from the last job. That happened again. So it's like, okay, well, what's next? We're more now like, okay, what's going to happen now?
Yep. So there was another shift, and you started thinking about quitting your job, and you had a deadline.
Well, and part of that too is like, there is the practical aspect of 3 kids in a camp or a daycare situation. You're talking like, I don't make, a ton of money. So it was like, look, this isn't working. And my company, basically they're changing, but they didn't do part-time.
So that wasn't an option for you.
It wasn't even an option in my mind, because I knew they didn't do this.
Yeah.
So I went in and I quit. And they said
because you had said in May.
In May, I was gonna. I really woke up that morning. I was like, I got to do this today, because if I don't do it today, it's not going to happen, and I'm just going to be obsessing. And we've made a decision. We don't want our kids to be. A lot of the decisions we make is about what we feel is best for our kids, and everybody's idea and family is different. I'm not saying that my way is the best way in any way, shape, or form. It's what works for us. And that's exactly what we're coming down to. It's like, I don't want my kids to be in nonstop daycares, camps. I want them to have childhood where, they can sleep in. We're a little bit more free range as far as like the, what they decide, the path that they, what interests them. And then once we find out, we foster it in them. And, so basically, I went in March and I quit, and they were like, why are you quitting? And I said, because financially, with 3 kids, I'm picking them up. They're in an after school program. I'm making a mortgage payment for them to be in an after school program for an hour and 45 minutes every day. Now with summer approaching, I'm looking at a triple mortgage payment. It's ridiculous. So, but they were like, no. Let's talk about this. And I was really shocked, and I was like, this wasn't what I expected.
So they gave you the option for part-time.
Part-time. And it's been a little bit of a wiggle, in the sense that, like, people around me are like, well, Paul doesn't do part-time. I shouldn't say that. But, it's like, they don't do that.
Yeah.
So, but they do now. And they're, I think they're realizing that they have to work with people.
Yeah.
And
I don't know, there's a quote that I love from a Martha Graham dancer, choreographer, and she talks about there's something in us, and there's this urge, and all we are supposed to do is follow this urge. Like, it's not our job to judge what it is, or to compare it, or to even criticize it. We just have to follow this urge. So I like that you woke up that morning and had this urge to quit your job.
Just had to.
That day, and it was months early. You had a plan.
Oh yeah, I went even around my husband in that regard, because I knew if I talked about it, he would probably be like, "Oh, that's not the plan." And we're good planners, in the sense that, like, we do try to keep a vision of our life in our minds, and write stuff down and have goals. And I just had to do it that day, and I did. Crazy. And it was like this. It was just really good timing, I think, because they're very busy. They need me. And at the same time, I'm like, I discount myself a lot. Like, I'm a good employee, and I show up, and I'm fun, Really, you know that. We used to work together. Totally. It was fun.
But I love that idea. So following your urge, and I love
and being
that.
okay with the consequence. Like, I mean, I quit that day, and it actually was even a couple of weeks of this weird meeting with HR, and what are you doing? And we don't normally do this, but let's work with this. What's this going to look like? And I've never been in a situation where people are wanting me to stick around and they're going to work with me, you know, and I've been with this company for a very, very long time. This was the second time, and this would have been my second time quitting a company because of kids, you know, and so I think they are starting to come on board with, you know, you do have these life transitions where it's like, maybe in a few years I'll be back to full-time because I won't need the part-time gig, or I'll be doing something else.
But again, you accepted, I'm going to quit this job. I accept that it's today and that it's going to happen today. And I accept that income is just going to be gone. And then here comes this opportunity.
Yeah. And that's where I was like, oh, okay. And I immediately, maybe it was because I've been through a lot of acceptance and just these kind of normal everyday situations that happen in your life. And I was like, I need to be open to this. And I'm really, really glad that I was, because now I realize it is good for me to have a job. It's good for me to go to work. I have fun with the people I work with, and it's a really good situation for me. So it was like, do it now and let it change. Because, and it's nothing, this is the other thing, it's like, it never ever looks the way you expect it will, ever. But you have to be open to what it's going to be. Like, oh, okay, and be surprised.
Yeah. Why did it take us 40-something years?
39 years. No, just kidding. Can I put the filter on this?
We're gonna chop that out. I love that. I love that lesson. I love it. And there is something about aging, you know, and it's not necessarily that we become wiser, but we have all these experiences of when I let go, when I accept great things happen. I'm always taken care of. Things always work out. So don't try to stand in the way of how something is you know, wants to look with our own expectations.
It's so much smaller. Like that's the thing. It's like, it really is that you can, I mean, I look at my kids and I look at the way they all came about, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I never could have planned this in a million years, ever. That was not on my radar at all. And again, to go from like pure devastation again to, I remember the day I had to call the office and I was sobbing and just, you know, like, I'm not coming back. Like, my computer was still on, you know, I had to be, you know, go immediately into surgery.
Wow.
And then it was like, you have all these plans and, you know, they're looking at the second room as the nursery, and then boom, you're like, all right, that I have no control over that. That changes everything. And you have no choice but to accept that, you know, okay, it's beautiful the way it is. And then it's amazing to be like, it could be more beautiful than ever.
God, that's such a great story to think about in those terms. I remember when, so I knew you were pregnant with the other child, and then we had coffee and you put that little, what do you call it, the sonogram? And I don't know how to read those things. I've never been able to see a baby in those things ever. And I just kind of glanced at it and was like, and you're like, that's so awesome. Okay, so tell me what's next for you.
Well, what's next is, you know, just kind of going through life, being present with the kids. That's something that's really, really important. We've launched another business, and that's been a whole journey in itself, like taking an idea from you know, just something that I thought would be fun to make, but inspired by a situation.
So a little bit of history. Chad and Summer are incredibly creative, very entrepreneurial. And I think part of the struggle with both of you was being in the corporate world, and this isn't us, and we need to create. They're both incredibly artistic. Zayvon plays the drums. They're in bands. You paint. You did embroidery. You had a business before, so that was part of the struggle. And then now you're just feeding that again.
Yeah. So all of the lessons learned from owning an art gallery, being in a band, I did little cartooning things like stationery and that.
At your corporate job.
Yeah. That translated to murals and
that's awesome.
Children's murals and making bedding for kids and stuff and like getting to a point with all of these businesses at some point going, you know what, this isn't feeding me anymore and this isn't it. And moving on and trying new things and how one thing leads to another where you learn one skill and you hone it down, and so what we're doing right now, it's called Ultra Bikini and it's a bathing suit that's a real 3-in-1 bathing suit. It changes from a bikini to a tankini and vice versa.
So tell me how that came about because you invented this.
I did. I basically, after having 3 kids and I grew up, my parents were split. My father was in Colorado. My mother was in Florida. I spent my summers with my mother on the beaches of Florida. And I've always been a beach girl. And I've always worn bathing suits and always wore bikinis. And then when you have 3 kids and you've had twins and I'm not getting any work done. I'm proud of my body. I think it's great. And, but you find yourself in these situations. Like basically, we did this little family reunion in Florida and I wore my bikini and I realized like as people I hadn't seen in many years start walking down the beach, I was like, I felt very exposed and very self-conscious and it wasn't, it was just something I hadn't thought about before. Like, well, I'm wearing a bikini and I feel like I need to cover up because I'm just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I had my tankini packed in the condo that was, up the beach and you got to go change and all that stuff. And it really wasn't appropriate to be like, okay, I'm going to
and then come back in a whole new suit.
Yeah. And so it was just that realization where I was like, why do I have to have 2 bathing suits? I mean, this is ridiculous. So I started looking online and looking to see if anything like that existed. And really there's like layering things that you can do. Like you can be wearing a bikini and then you got to put on a swim tankini and you're bulking up and
you got to carry.
You have to carry stuff around.
Yeah.
So the way that this comes off, you can tie it around your waist when you're not wearing the tankini.
So to explain how
it's got magnets hidden magnets that are waterproof. So it's really a seamless look when you're wearing it. But
so there's one piece that becomes the covering of the stomach,
the midriff cover up,
and then you can take that off and put your bikini on, and then wrap that.
Yeah, it's just your bikini's on. Like you're not having to change. It's a 2-in-1. It's truly a 2-in-1.
So you found a need, and you just went home and figured out.
Well, I figured it was a problem for other women, and it actually is. I mean, totally. I've had so many people, like the people who bought the suit who are wearing the suit now, love it.
Yeah.
And I mean, people are kind of like. I have one friend who's been wearing it around a local pool. And I mean, the women are like, wait a minute, you were just wearing a different suit a minute ago. She's like, yes, I was. And you get to change on the spot. So you're like, I want to wear it like this right now. And I want to take it off. That's so great. It's fun. It's a fun product.
Yeah.
And
so this hasn't been an easy, the whole manufacturing of it took almost a year.
The pattern making, the manufacturing, the learning about fabrics,
a patent.
Jeez. Yes, going through that
process.
Such a
self-learner. I love it.
Yeah, but it's hard in some aspects. Yeah. Like there are days where you're just like, I can't even deal.
So how do you, all that we've talked about, all the lessons that we now have, all the experience we now have, how do you use that in this situation? And do you think now this is going to be different because you have all of that to look back on? And
it just goes back to accepting and not expecting it to look the way that I think it'll look. It's like I'm putting it out there, I'm doing the work behind it and still having fun, still exploring, but I'm very, very conscious of the fact that this is not going to look the way I think it will.
Yes, I have that all the time.
Yeah.
When I started life coaching, I was like, I know this isn't going to be like a one-on-one. I know this is going to be so different. And but then how do you, so dealing with uncertainty, then what do you do? Because especially when you're starting a business, you're supposed to have a plan. You're supposed to have like all these ideas and this not the expectation, but the vision of what it's going to look like. Yeah. So how do you navigate that in this new found, it's not going to look like, it's not going to be linear.
I still have a job. So that's a plus.
Okay.
I mean, it's true. I am a risk taker, but I do it in a way so that I'm safe.
Yeah.
And that's just who I am.
Yeah.
I just have to do it that way. And therefore it can be fun and it can be more exploratory. And, you know,
it doesn't have to happen tomorrow.
It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. And I don't have to get caught up in fear of like, oh, somebody's going to take it or it's going to be this or that. You know what? It's going to look the way that it does.
Yeah.
And it's that full acceptance of like, I'm putting this out there. I'll be honest, I'm at a point right now where I'm not exactly sure what my next step is.
Yeah.
But so then what I'm doing is I'm going back and I'm seeing where other people who've forged that path, when they get stuck, what do they do?
Yeah, and what are you learning? I'm
learning that you just kind of do the next thing in front of you. And for me right now, that's reading where everybody's like, they're stuck and they need to figure out what's next.
Yeah.
And it is tough because I'm working. I've got 3 kids who are starting school any day now, you know, and at some points I just feel like, so the other thing is like that urgency where you're like, it has to happen now, you know, like I'll go back to meditating. I'm like, I've got to meditate. I've got to center myself. I have to be in the moment.
Yeah.
And then something will happen.
Yeah.
Something
that's
will
so
flow.
great. That trust alone, I feel like, can carry us so much further than it used to when we didn't trust and we had to keep filling the space. And I love that.
And part of it too is like, it's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen, you know. And I mean, maybe I'm different in that way. Like I see people who just will never ever give up on anything, but at the same time, I see that as, but you might be closing doors. To the place that you're really meant to be.
Yeah.
If you're so closed off to what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that just, it's just that, again, I'll do what I can, but I'm not one of these like, you know, I'm an introverted person and I'm quiet, you know, and I have to do it my way.
Yeah.
I have to do it the way that's comfortable for me.
Yeah. And I like that you let go of the expectation of this having to make money at a certain point.
Yeah.
You know, like if it takes, because your kids are the most important part. You're number one, a mom. So that needs to happen first. That's a priority. And if the business like takes off, you know, in 5 years, awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but as long as you're enjoying the journey and getting it out there. So I used to have this analogy of football, like a football player, and he catches the ball and he starts running for the end zone, and he keeps looking back. And every time I watch that, I'm like, stop! You're
looking back.
You're slowing down, so you know where you need to go. Yeah. Stop looking back. And I feel that with things that we're passionate about, if we keep looking up and seeing where everyone else is and seeing how they're reacting to our product or whatever we're putting out there, we're going to lose momentum.
Yeah.
So I think my theory has always been, if you're enjoying what you're doing and you hunker down and just do it, you're going to get interest just because you're so passionate about what you're doing. And people are going to be like, what's she doing over there? You know, they say that longevity, they've studied people who are in their hundreds, and the thing that they keep coming back to is resilience and how you bounce back from adversity and how you navigate the really bad stuff in your life. And I feel like you're incredibly resilient.
Oh, thanks.
So when you're 100, I'll be long dead.
I don't know if I want to be here that long.
So then be a little less resilient.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But I think you're doing a tremendous job.
Yeah. Well,
and
it's a learning and being conscious or trying to be conscious. There's still so much to learn.
Of course.
You know.
But if there weren't, we'd be dead.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
This was fun.
Yeah, really fun.
Ultra
Now we're gonna go drink. I'm just kidding.
Really, we don't drink.
Not on camera.
Bye. Thanks for watching.